I don't know when it started, but we've been swept up in a massive collective hypnotic spell. Then it goes like they say, as long as you get into a good university, life will be easy. As long as you get married, life will be stable. As long as you get through these few months, everything will turn out fine. We are like a group of travelers chasing a mirage in the desert, firmly believing that at some point not far ahead lies a sterile utopia free from pain and anxiety. But what is the reality? The reality is that that point will never come. During the most anxious and self-doubting period of my life, I would often wake up at 3 a.m., stare at the ceiling, and ask myself, why is my life so hard? Have I done something wrong? Am I the only one whose life is a complete mess? That was until I picked up an old book published in 1978. This book has sold tens of millions of copies worldwide, but its very first sentence struck like a sledgehammer, mercilessly shattering all my illusions. This sentence consists of just 4 words, yet it captures the ultimate reality of human existence. Life is difficult. Today, I don't intend to share any success philosophy with you, nor do I want to preach any cheap self-help cliché. I'd like to invite you to join me in exploring Dr. Scott Peck's Faith Road, less traveled Fae. Over the course of these 40 minutes, I want to explore a question that may sting, but will ultimately grant you true freedom. Since suffering is the fundamental nature of life, how can we carve out the essence of life amidst these ruins? When you hear the word self-discipline, what comes to mind? Is it setting your alarm for 6 a.m. every morning, a schedule precise to the minute, or those business slogans proclaiming, the more disciplined you are, the freer you'll be? But while reading this book, Faye discovered a chilling truth. The vast majority of us are actually using tactical diligence to mask strategic avoidance. ***, what we call self-discipline is often nothing more than a performance. Dr. Scott Peck is a psychiatrist who, after treating countless patients, came to a conclusion. The primary solution to life's problems is discipline, or what we commonly call self-discipline. But the self-discipline he speaks of is by no means mechanical repetition. Rather, it is asterisks, the principle of actively demanding that we endure pain. ***, the book features a classic example involving eating cake. Dr. Peck observed that some people, when eating cake, always eat the sweetest frosting first and save the dry cake for last. Others, however, choose to eat the cake first and save their favorite part as a final reward. This may sound like a trivial habit, but behind it lies a psychological mechanism that determines one's fate: delayed gratification. Delaying gratification means not seeking temporary comfort, but reordering the sequence of facing pain and pleasure. First, confront the problem, feel the pain, solve the problem, and then enjoy the pleasure. When I read this, I suddenly felt a chill run down my spine. I recalled every moment when my procrastination kicked in. Why did I scroll through short videos when I had to write? Was it really because the videos were so entertaining? It's because, deep down, I want to escape the pain of thinking that writing brings. We go on shopping sprees, endlessly scroll through social media, and even fill our lives with mindless overtime. None of this is self-discipline. It's actually a sign of a lack of self-discipline, because we're afraid to stop, afraid to face that real, thorny, painful riddle of life within us. Here, I'd like to pause and share a few more thoughts with you. Dr. Parker believes that as long as we learn to delay gratification, we can solve life's problems. But personally, I don't fully agree with this kind of absolute optimism. In the real modern world, the dilemmas we face are far more complex sometimes We delay gratification and endure years of suffering, only to find that what awaits us in the end isn't necessarily that sweet cream, but perhaps another, even drier cake base. Yet even so, this practice of facing pain remains, because avoiding pain only allows it to ferment in the darkness, eventually evolving into a dragon that devours us. We aren't solving problems. We're pretending they don't exist. And those tears that were never shed will eventually freeze into frost within our bodies. If delaying gratification is an attitude toward facing problems, then taking responsibility and staying true to the facts are the tools for solving them. The book presents a vivid metaphor. Life is like a map. During childhood, each of us draws our own map of the world based on the interaction patterns of our family of origin. If your parents were loving, your map will indicate the world is safe and people are trustworthy. If your childhood was filled with neglect and betrayal, your map will read, the world is hostile and I can only rely on myself. This metaphor left me deeply shaken. One detail is particularly thought-provoking. Dr. Parker points out that most people's psychological issues stem from outdated maps. Imagine holding a 1990 map of Beijing and trying to find your way around the city today. You'd hit dead ends everywhere. You'd get angry and you'd scream in despair at the sky. Why doesn't this road work? The map clearly shows there's a path here. Isn't this exactly how we behave when navigating relationships in real life? We often carry over the obedience, rebellion, or defense mechanisms we developed toward our parents in childhood, applying them unchanged to our marriages and workplaces as adults. When we lash out at our innocent partners, we are actually venting our anger at the absent father from years ago. When we display an unhealthy need to please our boss, we are actually craving the validation our mother never gave us. This leads to one of the book's most incisive distinctions: neurosis versus character disorder. People with neurosis always take all the blame upon themselves. Their catchphrases are, "It's all my fault, and I've messed up again." Those with character disorders, on the other hand, do the exact opposite. They shift all blame onto the outside world. Their catchphrases are, "It's all society's fault. You just don't understand me, and there's nothing I can do." Although the author draws a very clear distinction between these two states, under the microscope of reality, we often face far more complex situations. If we take this logic to its extreme, you'll discover a terrifying truth. Each of us is, almost without exception, a hybrid of these two conditions. In the workplace, when facing a domineering boss, we may exhibit neurotic tendencies, humbly taking the blame for everything. Yet at home with our closest loved ones, we may instantly transform into someone with a personality disorder, taking out all the frustration we've endured outside on them. Why is it so hard to revise the map? Because revising the map means you have to personally overturn the worldview you once believed in so deeply. It means admitting, my past beliefs were wrong, my parents were imperfect, and the survival rules I once relied on are invalid. That hurts too much. So most people would rather cling to that tattered old map, spinning hopelessly in a familiar maze, than bear the pain and responsibility of redrawing it. The essence of growth is a continuous act of self-betrayal. You must kill yesterday's self with your own hands to make room for today's soul to breathe. Next, we're entering the most counterintuitive and controversial chapter of this book. Take a deep breath, because Dr. Parker is about to ruthlessly shatter all our rose-colored filters regarding romantic love. He puts forward a shocking argument. Falling in love isn't love at all. When I first read this sentence, I almost wanted to throw the book across the room. Thousands of years of human literature, poetry, and film have all celebrated the spark and thrill of that moment when we fall in love. How can you say it isn't love? But as I patiently read on, I was completely won over by his powerful, self-contained logic. What is falling in love? In psychology, there is a concept called asterisk, ego boundaries, asterisk. When a baby is first born, it has no ego boundaries. It feels that I and mom are one, and that I and the world are one. As we grow, we gradually become aware of the distinction between self and other, and a sense of loneliness sets in, and falling in love is actually an ancient biological trick played by the human brain. In that moment, our ego boundaries collapse. We feel as though we've merged with another person, and that long-lost sense of security and omnipotence, much like being in the womb, envelops us once more. We see the other person as flawless. We feel that as long as they're there, all of life's problems will be easily solved. But an illusion is, after all, just an illusion. Once the tide of hormones recedes, our sense of self reestablishes its boundaries. You suddenly realize he never takes a shower, and she's always nagging. He's too busy gaming when you're sick, and she's still complaining about designer handbags when you're feeling down. And so disillusionment begins. Dr. Parker coldly points out, falling in love is merely an instinct for genetic reproduction. Its sole purpose is to trick you into mating and producing offspring. It is not a choice, requires no effort, and is bound to fade away. So what exactly is true? Love. The book offers an extremely rigorous and philosophically profound definition. Love is a willingness to continually expand one's boundaries and achieve self-improvement in order to foster the mental maturity of both oneself and others. Love is not a feeling, but an action. Love is not, I can't live without you. That is parasitism. But I can live just fine without you. Yet I still choose to be with you and grow together. True love, in fact, emerges precisely after the illusion of falling in love has shattered. When you have seen all of the other person's flaws, selfishness, and weaknesses, when you are no longer swept away by passion, yet you still choose, through rational will, to care for them, to listen to them, and to support their intellectual evolution. Here, I would like to offer. The author dismisses falling in love as a mere biological illusion, a view I do not entirely share. Yes, it is an illusion, but on our long, arduous, and at times even cruel journey through life, without this fleeting moth to the flame illusion serving as a catalyst, we might never have had the courage to push open the door labeled intimate relationship. Falling in love is like a trial period God has granted us, allowing us to taste a glimpse of heaven. Although you'll be sent back down to earth once the trial period ends, it is precisely because you've tasted that sweetness that you gain the motivation to spend your entire life building a staircase to heaven amidst the mundane realities of life. We must, however, remain clear-eyed. The trial period is not the final destination. The process of building the staircase is the very essence of love. Love is never an instinctive fall, but a climb against entropy. It is the heroism of choosing to plant a rose for you on the ruins, even after seeing through the countless flaws of human nature. At this point in the video, we have already endured the arduous discipline of self-control, dismantled the heavy burden of responsibility, and burst the bubble of romantic love. You might be thinking, goodness gracious, if we live according to this book, life is nothing but an endless Sisyphus, like toil. We must constantly push a heavy boulder up a hill. Are we really supposed to rely solely on our pitiful willpower to fight against this capricious fate? In the final section of the book, Dr. Parker pushes psychology into the intersection of theology and philosophy. He introduces a profoundly grand concept, grace. In physics, there is a despair, inducing law, the second law of thermodynamics. It tells us that everything in the universe tends toward disorder from order, and toward death from life. This process is called the increase of entropy. Laziness is the psychological equivalent of entropy in humans. We instinctively want to lie back, avoid thinking, and stay in our comfort zones to slowly decay. Because falling down is always easier than climbing up, since the underlying nature of all things is to head toward destruction. Why can humanity still create brilliant civilizations? Why, after suffering severe setbacks, can we still rebuild ourselves from the ruins? Why, when we gaze into the abyss, is there always a force pulling us back? One detail that struck me most deeply is that Dr. Parker did not simply attribute this force to some specific religious deity. He called this force grace. What is grace? It is a leaf that suddenly drifts down as you walk along the road, instantly helping you resolve a long-standing dilemma. It is a metaphor that suddenly appears in a dream when you are on the brink of despair, guiding you forward. It is a fatal accident you were destined to encounter, yet from which you emerge unscathed due to a fortuitous coincidence. We are often arrogant enough to believe that the growth of the human mind relies entirely on conscious effort. But the author tells us that deep within our conscious and subconscious minds, and even within the laws governing the universe, there exists a powerful force that resists the increase of entropy. It is like an invisible hand, protecting us in the shadows, nourishing us, and propelling us toward higher levels of mental evolution. If we take this logic to its extreme, we arrive at an extraordinarily broad philosophy of life. Although the author uses the religiously charged term grace, I prefer to interpret it as asterisk the resilience of life and the universe's complicity. Asterisk in practice, when we suffer a severe setback, when we feel as though we are being torn apart by the forces of entropy, we often sink into utter despair. But Faith, the road less traveled, gently taps us on the shoulder at such moments and says, "Don't be afraid. You are not fighting this battle alone." Every struggle to overcome laziness, every painful expansion of your boundaries for the sake of love, none of it stands alone. You are aligning yourself with that most mysterious anti-entropy force in the universe. Your suffering is the universe conducting a grand spiritual evolution through your physical body. We walk alone on this blue planet, yet we are not exiled orphans. The hardships that do not crush us will ultimately prove to be an invitation the universe has extended to us in a rough and tumble way. We have completed a long and arduous spiritual dissection, from the self-discipline of embracing pain to the responsibility of redrawing the map. From true love that shatters the illusions of emotional entanglements, to the grace that defies the law of increasing entropy. During the countless days and nights spent preparing this video, I repeatedly savored the words in this book. I discovered that it did not provide me with a step-by-step guide to happiness that I could simply follow. On the contrary, it stripped me of my last remaining excuse. It made me realize that I could no longer act like a giant baby, expecting someone to come save me or bear the weight of life on my behalf. But strangely enough, once I truly accepted from the bottom of my heart that life is full of hardships, I actually felt a sense of lightness I'd never experienced before. Because once you acknowledge that suffering is the norm, suffering itself is no longer unbearable. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "How should I face this?" This is the most fundamental shift in my outlook on life, that this book has brought me. True redemption is never found at the end of a road less traveled, but in every moment you take a step forward and feel the sharp stones prickling the soles of your feet. The texture of life is not pieced together from glossy, dazzling successes, but forged from the tears you swallow in the dead of night, the agonizing pain of overturning old beliefs, and the resolute choice to love even after seeing life's true nature. At the end of this video, I'd like to set aside some time for you. If you've read this far, it means you're a fellow traveler, willing to face reality head on rather than sink into illusions. I'd like to ask you a question, and I hope you'll share your thoughts in the comments section. In your life right now, which outdated map are you clinging to? If you chose to tear it up today, what exactly would you be most afraid to face?